Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the 5 things I love and hate series. In this one we have the 5 things I hate about the Ford Mustang Mach-E Select. This one's been quite difficult to actually tell you 5 things that I hate about it, because I do all round think this is a very good car, and in the right sort of spec and level of trim this is actually going to be a very good car. But we are going to go into the 5 things that I have maybe not hated but strongly disliked about this car while I've had it in the period I've had it. So let's jump into things and get on to the video. The first thing is actually going to be something which I touched on loving in the first video, is this aspect of the design, but it's going to be the reverse, and it is going to be something which I saw Car Wow bring up and one more review bring up, and that is actually the getting out of this one. This little toggle, as you can see, I'm putting a bit of friction on that at the minute and it's clicking, but it's not going all the way back. I'll just zoom that in for you. It's clicking and it's not going all the way back. The resistance on this is quite hard, to be honest, and I know it's going to open a car door, so the restriction does have to be a good bit of resistance, but I just feel like it takes a lot to pull that back to there, which obviously opens up the door for you. It's not that difficult in other cars which have the conventional door handles, whereas this one it almost looks like the gear selector in some Porsches these days, but that is quite difficult, and then it pops the door open and you have to push it a bit further. I just think maybe it doesn't need as much resistance to pull that open, because like Matt Watson on Car says, you are getting a bit of a finger workout on that one, and some people might actually require 2 fingers to open it up. I mean, over time using that and opening the door, this has done 14,000 miles. Is that going to get any slacker? I'm not sure. Probably not. I just feel like that could have maybe been a better design. Maybe not a button as such, but maybe almost like your windows. I feel like it could have had maybe a configurator like that, where you maybe need to put 2 on to open it, because that is quite the effort to open that one. It's petty, I know it's really petty, and it's just something I found, and that is something I just think could be designed a little bit better. The second thing that I haven't enjoyed with this one then is actually going to be something which I experienced this morning, and that was using the climate controls. I do really like the climate controls being where they are, and it's not something I necessarily hate about this one. I just think if you had dials for the bottom section here, it would actually be really better. Keep the screen how it is, but this little, as you can see, this little line across here, if you were to just put a dial in the middle, a dial left, a dial right, have the middle one as your volume, have the left one as the left side of the car's climate, and the right one as the right side of the car's climate, I think that would be honestly the perfect infotainment system layout that the car could have. I think it was just a bit frustrating in the morning. I got in the car. It has Ford's technology of getting rid of the sort of condensation and fog inside the car much better than most cars, but it was just once I'd got off and I'd set off driving, it was the fiddliness of sorting this out. As you can see, you can turn this dial, and that does help, but it doesn't help with the fact that I do my side and then the passenger then has to click on their side. You sort of could be doing that together simultaneously at the same time, like in other vehicles, and then looking at this, it can be quite hard to work out how do you turn it off. There's just a lot of buttons that you need to sort of click through in order to do it, rather than the simple on off, left side, right side, and obviously your front display and your back display, your front and rear windows, should I say. One thing that I found really weird was you actually have, if I come down here, as you can see, you have another front display here to put the max heating on the front, which is just a really weird place to see it. If I hadn't seen that in a video, I would never have found that before, but it's just down there on your sort of where your fog lights are and where your normal lights are. It was a really weird thing to find, but interesting to say the least. Although I said I absolutely love this feature of the sort of passcode entry feature that you have on this car, one thing I don't like about this car is actually how you get into the back seats of this one. So it has the same entering system, it doesn't have the passcode, only the driver's side has the passcode feature, but it does have the same press of the button and the door opens. Unlike the front one where you press the button and it has this lip, as you can see, really nice lip to get your hand into there, get your fingers behind it and open up the door. The back door doesn't have that, so it's a flush finish. It has no handles, it has no grab, it has no hook, it has nothing like that. So when you press this button, that's as far as the door opens. So not massive, but not little at the same time. Obviously, like you can see, you could get a hand in there if you wanted, you could get a hand in here, you could get a hand up here, all fine, and it's easy enough to get your hand in, no bother whatsoever. But and I'm maybe just thinking of really bad hypotheticals and what ifs here, but that opens the door up, and the next thing you have to do, which not sure if it's a bad safety feature or whatever, the next thing you have to do is put your hand in the door, giving the door the opportunity to close on your your hand. It does have a restriction. Obviously, I don't know if you heard that noise, but that kind of clips out in there. Let that focus. It clips out and stops the door closing. But I just feel like that's not a great system. So if I do push on the door, it doesn't like let the door close. It's really hard to sort of see in there with the camera and not show you what my eyes are looking at. But I just think as a whole, if someone opens it slightly and then has to close the door, you can then hear the little whir of the mechanics moving obviously the latch back to let the door close fully. So I think if you were to open this door, pull the door slightly open, and then realize, oh god, there's a car coming, I'm gonna have to step in. As that door wants to close, that door does want to close on my hand, which isn't really the best. And I just think, especially obviously the car's clean at the moment, you're potentially having a dirty car, you've got to grab onto things that may be dirty, which obviously with this front design you don't have to do. The fourth thing I don't like about this one, and that I would change if I could, is actually the plastic trim that this model has. Other models you can't see it on, or it doesn't have it at all. It depends on the model you get, whether you get the premium, the GT. If you get anything higher than Select, there is an option, I think, to get rid of all this plastic. I don't like that back reflector there. That would really annoy us if this was my car. I know it's something simple and it's got another one there. I don't really like the look of them. On a black car, seeing the orange stand out like that, I'm not a fan of. But the main thing that I didn't like about the design on this one, I thought everything else was really nice. It has the sporty stance, it's got the nice haunched back rear section and whatnot, but it's just the plastic on this one, similar to like my Range Rover. Say I had the annoyance of having plastic on the back of my Range Rover, and I think the bit where it looks the worst is actually the diffuser. I say a diffuser, it's not a diffuser, it's where the diffuser would be on a combustion engine car. As you can see, you've got this big plastic bit on the back of the car, which is actually quite some size. You've got the light at the bottom there, the rear sort of reflector. You've got the two reflectors on the side, which I think are fine. I'm not a massive fan of that middle one. I don't mind the two red ones on either side, but the bottom one I'm not a massive fan of, as the lights have came on there randomly. I just think the plastic on this gives it a bit of a cheap vibe. You're spending 50 grand on this car, remember, at its base level. I just think it really doesn't give it an expensive feel like you do with other cars. I think the plastic on it really does let it down. So for me, I would go for a higher spec and a different model variant to avoid the plastic that's going on the back of this car. Round the front, you don't really notice it much. On the side, it's not awful. I don't mind it too much on the wheel arches. It's not great, and I think the black doesn't help. The gloss black paint and then the matte plastic maybe makes it look worse, and the wheels do kind of help. The wheels being the same color as the plastic do help the plastic not look as bad, but that is something I would potentially have liked to see in Mustang and Ford do differently to keep the sportier vibe of this one, rather than it kind of looking like, I can't think of the car, is it a Toyota or a Honda, has a lot of the plasticky bits on the side of the car. I just think overall the reflectors and the plastic bits of this car are something that I would prefer not to have. I don't necessarily hate it, I think it looks all right, but I just think it does draw your attention, a lot of the plastic on this one. And when you're spending 50 grand on a car or more, you probably don't want the plastic on the outside of the car. The The fifth and final thing that I haven't liked about this car, and I'm really surprised at it when I saw it, wasn't actually something to do with the car. It was actually this thing here. I'll get this to focus eventually. It's actually this key. Look at that. This is a 50 grand car. It's a Mustang, and the whole car is all about nice design and sort of almost avoiding the fact that it's a Ford. Like I mentioned in the 5 things I love video, you can't see anywhere on this car that it's a Ford. Yes, you've got obviously the decals on it at the moment, but by this car comes without the stickers. Obviously there is no real way of telling that this car is a Ford. If you're not a car person, some people might not even know what that Mustang symbol is and just think that's the logo for whatever car, but not actually know that this is a Ford. You then do get this key. As I focus this again, says Ford on it, which is fine. The problem isn't the Ford, the problem is just how basic that key is. That is the same key that you get on a Ford Fiesta from 10 years ago. It just really isn't great. I thought they could have done something a bit more special, a bit more cool, something sporty, something to sort of highlight the expense of this car and the difference of them, it being a Mustang Mach-E. But no, they've kept this one, and I think that just could have been better. And having that in your pocket, you're not going to feel like you're driving a car that's potentially between 50 to 80 grand. It does feel like you're getting a bog standard Fiesta or Ford Focus from 10 years ago. So I think Ford could have done better with that one. And that's going to be the 5 things that I hate about the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the 5 things that I hate about this Ford Mustang Mach-E Select. Obviously, some of the things in there are pretty subjective and opinionated. Others might not be too bothered, others might not care, others might even like the plastic on this one and not care about seeing plastic on the car, and they might not even care about the key either, because let's be honest, you drive the car, you don't drive the key, you don't look at the key all the time. But I know there is people out there who will want the key to look better, to have it hanging in the house, to have it on the table when they're out for food with friends, whatever. I just think they could have done something a bit more in certain aspects of this car, whether it be changing the plastic, changing the key, or putting the same little design on the front door as they did on the back. So those are the 5 things that I thought that Ford could have done a bit better with this one. Like I said, not necessarily a hate, but just things I think need improving on. I'm going to give you one more thing as well, and that is the fact that on the key, you can't open the front. You can't open the front boot from the key. You have to go into the passenger side, go into the door well, click the thing twice and open up the boot. And the second thing is it has a boot opener on the key, like most modern keys. You double click the key twice, it will open the boot. But, well, I'll show you actually as a demonstration. You get this vintage key out, you double click, as you can see and hear, that has opened the boot. It's not though an electrically assisted tailgate. You do actually have to come over and lift that up and pull it down, which again, I think when you're spending 50 grand, it's not too difficult to put an electrically operated tailgate in. So that is just an extra one for you. You can't open the frunk from the key. You have to go into the car, into the passenger side and open the frunk, and the boot doesn't open by itself. So again, there's 2 more extra things thrown onto this one. One thing I have thought of as well that I had ended this video and done the outro for, but I completely forgot to mention, was I hate the steering wheel in this thing. It is basically the steering wheel out of a Ford Fiesta. It's got the same dials, the same buttons, should I say. It's replaced the Ford sign with the Prancing Pony. And it's just really sort of bland and boring and cheap. I think they could have done a sportier wheel. I think they could have made the buttons much nicer. I just think it looks almost... Obviously, if you take away the little piano black and the sort of little design on the front of it, it is a really basic, bland, boring, non-sporty wheel. And I think this kind of does deserve, with the interior that this has, it deserves a better wheel. It's got the cheap sort of plasticky stalks behind for your indicators and your wipers. But I just think as a whole, this wheel could have been so much better. You could have given it a flat bottom. You could have changed the layout. You could have changed the design. You could have made better buttons. You could have made them sort of similar to a Range Rover and been touch screeny buttons. I just think overall, going off the infotainment system, the big screen, the screen behind there, and then adding the wheel in, I just think it doesn't really match up and it doesn't fit the look of the inside of this car. So that's going to be another thing that I forgot to add that I haven't liked about this one, and it's the steering wheel. Shape, size, everything's fine. It's just the outdated look of it, I think, that I think definitely needs revisited and changed. And when you're spending 50 grand, you want something better than these scratchy plastics on the buttons and the stalks. And I have been OLTTV. This has been the Ford Mustang Mach-E in its select variant, and that's been the 5 things I hate. Please drop a comment, drop a like, and subscribe for more videos in the future, and cheers all for watching.